Almost every traveler seems to know someone who fell in love with Bali. Sometimes it happened 20 years ago. Sometimes it happened 5 years ago. Yet, when those travelers describe the island they remember, the stories often sound surprisingly similar. They talk about quiet roads lined with rice fields. They talk about hidden beaches, small family-run guest houses, peaceful villages, and a feeling that life moved at a different pace. For many people, Bali felt less like a tourist destination and more like a place that gradually revealed itself. The island seemed to reward curiosity rather than careful planning. That version of Bali became legendary among travelers. It inspired books, documentaries, blogs, and countless recommendations passed from one traveler to another. Today, Bali remains one of the most famous destinations in the world. Millions of visitors continue arriving every year in search of the same experience. Yet a growing number of travelers leave with a strange feeling. They enjoyed the island, but they are not entirely sure they found the Bali they had heard so much about. The question is not whether Bali is still beautiful. The island remains one of the most visually stunning destinations on Earth. The question is whether the Bali people fell in love with still exists beneath the crowds, traffic, and tourism growth that now define much of the island's image. To understand that question, it helps to remember why Bali became famous in the first place. For decades, Bali attracted travelers seeking something different. The island offered tropical scenery, fascinating culture, affordable living, and a sense of escape that felt increasingly rare. Unlike many beach destinations, Bali combined natural beauty with a rich cultural identity. Temples, ceremonies, traditional arts, and local customs remained visible parts of everyday life. Visitors often described feeling connected to the island in ways they did not expect. The experience felt personal rather than transactional. Many travelers arrived planning to stay for a few days and ended up staying for weeks. Some returned year after year. That reputation spread around the world. Bali became more than a destination. It became an idea. The idea of slowing down. The idea of finding balance. The idea of escaping modern pressures and reconnecting with something simpler. Ironically, that success became the beginning of Bali's transformation. As more people discovered the island, tourism expanded rapidly. New hotels, restaurants, villas, beach clubs, and attractions appeared across many popular areas. Development created jobs and economic opportunities. It also began changing the physical landscape that travelers associated with Bali. Places that once felt quiet became increasingly busy. Roads designed for smaller communities suddenly found themselves handling enormous numbers of vehicles. Traffic became one of the most common complaints among modern visitors. In some areas, journeys that once felt simple now require far more time and patience. The growth of social media accelerated these changes. Locations that were once known mainly to locals and adventurous travelers suddenly became global attractions. A single photograph could transform a quiet viewpoint into a major destination almost overnight. Travel patterns began changing. Instead of discovering places naturally, many visitors arrived with lists of famous locations already saved on their phones. This shift altered the experience itself. Part of what made earlier travel to Bali memorable was the feeling of surprise. Travelers often stumbled upon special places by accident. Today, many arrive already knowing exactly where they want to go. The mystery has become harder to find. Tourism growth has also changed the character of certain areas. Neighborhoods once known for local life and traditional culture now contain international cafes. luxury accommodations, and businesses designed primarily for visitors. For some travelers, these developments are positive. They create convenience, comfort, and a wider range of choices. For others, they contribute to the feeling that Bali has become less distinctive than it once was. The island now serves many different audiences simultaneously: backpackers, luxury travelers, digital nomads, influencers, surfers, wellness enthusiasts, families, and retirees all arrive with different expectations. The result is a Bali that feels more complex than ever before. Yet despite all these changes, something important often gets overlooked. Many of the qualities that originally attracted travelers have not disappeared. They simply require more effort to find. Beyond the busiest tourism districts, Bali still contains villages where daily life follows rhythms that have changed little over generations. Rice terraces still stretch across the landscape. Temples still host ceremonies. Traditional culture remains deeply woven into many communities. Visitors willing to explore beyond the most famous locations often discover a very different side of the island. This is where the conversation becomes more interesting. Perhaps the Bali people fell in love with has not vanished at all. Perhaps it has simply become less obvious. In the past, travelers could encounter it almost immediately after arriving. Today, finding it often requires leaving the most crowded areas behind. Many longtime visitors describe exactly this experience. They acknowledge the traffic, the development, and the commercialization. Yet they also insist that the essence of Bali remains intact. The challenge is that travelers now have to search for it more deliberately. This reflects a broader trend occurring in destinations around the world. Places that become famous inevitably change. Success attracts visitors, investment, and development. The very qualities that make a destination special often create the conditions that transform it. Bali is not unique in this regard. What makes Bali fascinating is how strongly people feel about those changes. Few destinations inspire such passionate conversations. Travelers often speak about Bali as though they are discussing an old friend. That emotional connection explains why the question continues to resonate. What happened to the Bali people fell in love with? The answer depends largely on where you look. If you focus only on traffic, crowds, and social media hotspots, it may seem like the old Bali disappeared long ago. But if you venture beyond the busiest corners of the island, many travelers argue that the spirit of Bali remains remarkably alive. The culture, landscapes, traditions, and warmth that made the island famous still exist. They are simply competing with a modern tourism industry that has grown far larger than anyone could have imagined. Perhaps the real story is not that Bali changed. Perhaps the real story is that Bali became so successful that it now contains multiple versions of itself at the same time. And that may be why travelers continue returning despite all the complaints and concerns. Because somewhere between the crowded roads, famous viewpoints, hidden villages, and ancient temples, many people still find the Bali they fell in love with. It just might not be the first version they encounter when they arrive.